Hey there, hope all is well. Back at you today with some more RTD News updates. And today I want to share with you an article I came across by Mr. Jim Rickards called The Global Elite's Secret Plan for Cryptocurrencies. And so in reading that article, it got me to thinking about the origins of the blockchain technology and some of the possible plans that was already in play prior to the financial crash that kind of led into some of his thoughts that he's going to share in this article. But before I dive into that, as always, if you're new to RTD, I want to encourage you to click the subscribe button as well as the notification bell to be informed on the next news updates as well as monetary news interviews. And then also, if you are interested, watch the RTD University page where I have all my interviews from prior guests and whatnot describing their thoughts on what it means to rethink the dollar plus more. And so let's dive into today's article, and I'd love to get your thoughts on the questions I want to pose at the end of it. So today I have just one article, as I mentioned, from the Daily Reckoning. But before I actually dive into the article, I want to share with you my thoughts on cryptocurrencies, being that I've kind of hinted at it before, but don't really cover it as much as a lot of other alternative media guys tend to do. And so my thoughts are not really to the left or to the right or really extreme or really anti-crypto. I'm more so in between just because I don't quite know the origins of it. So one of the questions I'm going to pose to you at the very end of this has to do with the origins and just some of my thoughts on how it's still too early for me to tell, even though I do believe in playing with it a little bit, not hanging your hat solely upon it. So we have a lot of alternative media gentlemen, which are prior guests on Rethinking the Dollar, one being Mr. Chris Wayne from the Silver Shoulder Exchange, and he's one of the guys that, if I was to give an analogy of a swimming pool, he's one of those guys that say, if cryptocurrencies is the equivalent of water in a swimming pool, he wants to go nowhere near it. And then we have other gentlemen who have kind of warmed up to the idea and really believe in the blockchain technology in and of itself, such as prior guest Mr. Andy Hoffman, who was previously at Miles Franklin, no longer there, but doing some things on his own now. And so over the last couple of months or so, he's really became more pro cryptocurrency to the point where it seems like he's kind of put his body in the pool a little bit with his hand on the side, in the form of just still hanging on, but not fully diving into it, but very pro cryptocurrency. As me, if I was to kind of position myself, I'm more of a guy that likes to just put his feet in the water a little bit but still stay on land, just to play around with it, just because I believe the technology is incredible. But that's just my thoughts and kind of where I stand on cryptocurrency. So I believe, time will tell if it's something that will be really, really good for everyone to be a part of. But definitely, because it's an innovative technology, I would encourage those, according to your knowledge base, to be able to play around with it a little and have a little fun with it. So that's just my thoughts on it. But I want to dive into this article here. And also, let me know your thoughts on this format, trying to, be more short and concise with my news updates, and so bring it to you directly so you can read it on the screen yourself. And so here, just to give you an idea what's going on, as I mentioned, articles from Daily Reckoning, and it's written by James Rickards as of a couple days ago, this current week, and it's entitled The Global Elite's Secret Plan for Cryptocurrencies. And so it's, quite a lengthy article, but yet very detailed with some things that I believe are worth considering in this whole cryptocurrency world that we're living in now, where it's going to become more mainstream as time goes on. And so here I want to just summarize it best I can. But he starts off talking about how Bitcoin, the very first blockchain technology, currency, money, or whatever you want to call it, it's becoming mainstream. And so he's like, a lot of people are making money off of it nowadays. You can't really turn on a TV or do anything social media wise without getting advertised in regards to cryptocurrencies or Bitcoin in of itself. And then he kind of leads into a comparison of how this innovative technology is not something that has caught government by surprise. And then he leads into an example of in 1958 where the government, or president, dictator, whatever his name is, Mao Zedong, how he kind of spurred and encouraged an innovative revolution somewhat, and then it came back to kind of bite those that participated in the butt. So he goes into depth about it, but yet it was just a time where he encouraged innovative activity, which allowed him to eventually pinpoint those who were more so against his rule and threaten him somewhat, to where then he kind of got into some of the dictatorship things where he started, imprisoning people, killing people, and so forth. Once everything came to the light and he was able to actually see who was supportive of that movement. So he kind of led to a comparison of that nature there. Then he goes on to talk about how, the government, as it says here, governments do not like competition, especially when it comes to money. So governments know they cannot stop the blockchain. In fact, they don't want to. It says what they want is to control its using power of regulation, taxation, investigation, ultimately more coercive powers, including arrest and imprisonment of individuals who refuse to obey. Then he gets into the idea that, you know, the whole blockchain technology, and as he called it here, the digital ledger technology. It says, you know, the IMF and the powers that be. And this kind of then plays into the question I'm going to ask at the very end of this. But he pinpoints a couple groups such as the JP Morgan, Wells Fargo, State Street, Swift, Cisco, all the, you know, the financial institutions that kind of control our monetary system already, how they themselves have now you know, joined the bandwagon and adopted the idea of including blockchain technology into their technology and their system. Then he goes on to talk about some of the legal aspects here, how governments, you know, for the most part here in the United States has been very quiet, apart from recently with the whole ICO things that's going on, and they're looking to try to, you know, minimize that in hopes of offering security for those so they don't lose money. But then you have China and their, banning ICOs, and they also talk about some possibly closing down exchanges. And so just to give you an idea what he talks about here, it says, an elite U.S. legal institution called the Uniform Law Commission that proposes model laws instead of adoption in all 50 states. And it's called Proposal Uniform Regulation of Virtual Currency Businesses Act. And so that's something that might be underway. It says this new law will not only provide a regulatory scheme for state regulators, but will also be a platform for litigation by private plaintiffs and class action lawsuits seeking recourse against real or imagined abuses by the whole ICOs and exchanges. Then he talks about cryptocurrency and a super elites plan, which is kind of interesting, which also plays to the question I'm going to ask in a second. But it says just consider some of the additional developments that's happened over the last couple months with cryptocurrency. And then he pinpoints 3 here, which is on August 1st, the SEC announced the guidance on regulation and initial coin offerings. He says the first step towards requiring fundraising through blockchain-based tokens to register with the government. So basically, possibly moving forward, if you're going to have an ICO here in the United States, you got to go through the government first. Then here, August 1st, the World Economic Forum, hosted by Davos Conference of Global Super Elites, published a paper entitled 4 Reasons to Question the Hype Around Blockchain. And then the next one here is August 7th. China announced they will be using blockchain to collect taxes and issue electronic invoices to citizens. But then what's most telling is at the very end of this article here, it talks about the IMF. And so as you know, Jim Ricketts, he's a big SDR fan, really believes the SDR is a part of our next monetary system. And then he talks about how, you know, their most recent paper from June kind of plays into the idea of how they are now going to use that blockchain technology as well as the digital ledger technology to their benefit. And then he kind of going to close this with the idea of they're for it, but yet they're more so for it from a closed standpoint as an open source standpoint. So give you an idea here, it talks about digital ledger technology in particular could spur change in the financial sector. It says DLT can be categorized as permissionless or permissioned, and this is where it gets interesting. It says permissionless DLTs allow anyone to read, transact, or participate in the validation process. It says these open source schemes such as Bitcoin could be very disruptive if successful implemented. By contrast, in permission DLTs, the validation process is controlled by a pre-selected group of participants. So to kind of, you know, decipher a little bit, he's saying that there's the open source and then there's the closed source. And he's like, the IMF is really beginning to allow, and they're going to allow closed sourced or predetermined groups such as the banking sector to begin instituting blockchain technology and offering it to the public. And then it talks about here how if they're going to begin allowing these institutions to do it, then it's going to be some type of conflict if they have open source. And so then that leads to the question I'm going to ask. And so the question I'm going to ask is the fact that, you know, if the government decides to allow, you know, their financial institutions to offer closed source blockchain technology, which means all transactions has to go through government issued institutions or government allowed institutions, and they made the open source blockchain technology illegal, would you still use it is the question. And so if it was illegal to use Bitcoin, Litecoin, Ethereum, and they were able to track, monitor somehow, some way, you know, whether it be having access to your phone, you know, or being able to track your traffic on the internet, if it became completely illegal, would you use it? And that's one question. And then the question I'm going to pose beyond that is the idea of the whole introduction and the origin of the blockchain technology. This is something that this article kind of spurred in my mind and got me to thinking about, I've always been skeptical as to where it actually originated from. So my question is, what do you think? Do you think the blockchain technology, primarily the first coin that we were introduced to, such as Bitcoin, if it was a pre-financial crisis development, open source technology, so was it was the code and all that technical stuff written before the financial crash and just in Satoshi Nakamoto's computer waiting on an ideal time to be released, meaning that it was already predetermined that this technology was going to be introduced to kind of get the public excited and give them the idea that they have an alternative form of financial transaction options by using the blockchain, just to get all this excitement going on right now that we're all a part of right now. Everyone's kind of making money, this and that, whatever. And so if it was pre-financial crisis, which means it's already determined that this is going to be launched or released to the public for a time such as this, as things are unraveling, so that we can be excited and introduced to the technology for the governments to then take over down the line and make it, the open source side of things, illegal? Or was it post-financial crisis where the information actually came about because of inspiration by Satoshi Nakamoto, and it was something he developed post-crisis that led to the idea of innovative things that the banking system is now having to adjust and begin to try to scramble to find out ways of them getting on board with the same technology so that they can then use it and then possibly down the line regulate it, to the point where, an open source such as what we're using now type of thing is illegal. So just two questions I want to pose, which I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, and also what your thoughts on this cryptocurrency, and so the basic two questions I want to end up with is this: was the whole idea of blockchain technology, was it post financial crisis of 2008, 2009, or was it pre-financial crash 2009, as far as it already been determined, been ready to roll out for a time such as this, where the IMF already kind of had an idea of what they were going to plan on trying to do as far as that world currency type of thing? And also, if it does become illegal, will you still be wanting to use it and, be willing to go against the law to use this open source technology that the government may say is illegal? So I would love to hear your thoughts. Just wanted to share this article with you. And also, if you're new to RTD, click the subscribe button for more RTD news interviews as well as updates. And looking forward to hearing some responses in the comment section on what you think, what your thoughts might be. And also, if you want to find this link, it'll be below as well. All right, enjoy your day. Thanks.